Hey everyone, my name is Mix Mendoza. I take he, him, it. I'm a gender identity educator, a mental health service provider, and a professional queer and gender blessed human. Um, I'm really happy you're here today and taking the steps necessary for you to become a better ally or to practice better allyship to the non-cis gender blessed community. So thank you so much for being here. All right, so let's get started. This is part one of two parts. So we're going to start with the land acknowledgement and grounding. So I want to acknowledge that I am on Kumeyaay land. As we gather here today, we would like to acknowledge that this workshop was created on the original homeland, the Kumeyaay people. We acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced removal from this territory, and we honor and respect the resilience of the Kumeyaay tribe um, and the people still here and still connected to and in harmony with this land. All settlers, including recent arrivants, have a responsibility to consider what it means to acknowledge the history and legacy of colonialism. All right, so let's take a deep breath. And I want us to do a little bit of grounding before we start. So really that means like getting in touch with your body. How are you feeling right now? Try to get outside of your head. If you have any worry, any stress, any thoughts in your mind right now, just try to focus on how your body's feeling. So we can do a little bit of a body scan. If you want to start with your feet, your toes, notice what's making contact with the ground. Are you sitting on a chair? Are you sitting on your bed? Um, Go up into your lower legs, up to your knees, your thighs, um, your pelvis, up into your torso. Notice any places where you might have any discomfort, any tension. Try to relax all of your muscles. You can feel down your arms, up to your neck, your shoulders. Notice if you have any tension in your shoulders. Notice if you have any tension of your jaw. Release all of that tension. Notice what's on your head. Notice your face. Take a deep breath. Come back into your body. All right, so let's get started. What is allyship? And this is specifically allyship for the non-cis gender-blessed community. So the basics of the basics. I know people say there's no such thing as stupid questions, but some questions are disrespectful, and so I really want to highlight that. So don't ask questions about what bathroom people use, what body or body parts they have, what surgeries they've had done, how people have sex, about their partners, or any legal or birth name or gender. There's just really no reason for us to be asking those questions. I think our culture has an obsession with knowing people's parts and making assumptions about what that means for them as people. But you know, it's disrespectful, so there's no need for that. What you can do instead is introduce yourself with your pronouns as an extension of your name in every space and setting, especially if you identify as cis, which means if you identify with the gender that you were assigned at birth. And make it really normal to ask people's pronouns and for people to be able to change their pronouns fluidly. Some people don't have pronouns and we can respect that as well. So if you don't know what someone's pronouns are, or if they've told you that they don't have pronouns, what you can do is just use their name. So just instead of saying he went to the store, they went to the store, you could say, Joey went to the store, and it doesn't have to, there doesn't have to be a gender associated with that person. Okay. Another big point I want to make is that there's a difference between gender expression as one, gender identity, and sexual identity. Those three things are completely separate. So I think in our culture, oftentimes we tend to have ideas about sort of like what men tend to look like, what women look like, what or what non-binary people see. I'm doing what non-binary people look like. Um, but there's really no truth to that because a woman can wear a tuxedo, a man can wear a dress, a non-binary person can wear whatever they want. Like it really doesn't matter. um, there's no strict association between, okay, if I take they them pronouns, this is the outfit that I'm allowed to wear. It doesn't make sense. Same thing with gender expression. I think in the queer community there tends to be a lot of like seeking visibility, and so you do that by not conforming to your gender expression oftentimes, or like trying to look more androgynous, um, or explicitly non-conforming. And That's harmful as well because there is no one way to look queer. There is no one way to look trans or to look genderqueer or to look any identity. The whole point is that we have the freedom to be as creative as we want with the way that we express ourselves, with the way, with our clothes, with our mannerisms, with our gestures, with our tone of voice. We can do whatever, and that's completely separate from who we are as people and who we are attracted to. Those things are completely separate. Um, So I hope that makes sense. And allyship really requires opening up the space to learn, opening up the space to acknowledge that what society has taught us is wrong, that all of our default settings, our default knowledge, our automatic is wrong. And so we have to go in, we have to do the work of educating ourselves and unlearning the gender binary that has been enforced our whole lives. Um, Allyship requires forgiving ourselves for the ways that we have forced ourselves to conform to a gender because we thought that was the only way that we would be worthy of love or, success or validation. It's fostering growth, fostering self-forgiveness instead of just sitting in the guilt and the defensiveness of like, oh shit, maybe I'm transphobic. Yes, we are all transphobic. We were all raised to be transphobic. Um, and yes, it's normal for us to feel guilt and defensive about that, but that doesn't help anyone. What helps is us processing those feelings and getting to a place where we can forgive ourselves and where this doesn't have to be such a big thing about who we are as people. And finally, I want to get to this concept of the collective shadow, which is this idea that I'm talking about that we all have internalized transphobia because we have all been raised in a culture that has taught us that there are men and there are women. It has erased everything and anything outside of that, beyond that binary. Um, and really what the collective shadow means is that like this idea of the gender binary has had consequences, like violent consequences for people for generations, and that trauma that people have gone through, um, it's like epigenetically stored in our bodies. It's in our DNA. It's in our subconscious. It's this fear that we have to be in our bodies. Um, and it comes from this comfort, this familiarity of like, okay, this binary is cool, I kind of see how to fit into it, as opposed to doing the work of like, who am I if this weren't a thing, if this weren't real. um, and it could help a lot of people, not just yourself but everyone around you, to start questioning these things, to start diving into those deep uncomfortable emotions that come from starting to analyze who we are outside of that gender binary. So I want to talk a little bit about my mistakes in allyship, specifically working on my internalized homophobia. So when I was in high school, I had a friend who asked me if my friend was gay, and I felt like physically uncomfortable. I felt like that was an attack to my friend. I felt like what he was saying is that like it's an insult. Like he's calling her gay. Why would he do that? Like I don't know why he's making these assumptions. And I got defensive. I was like, I got to stand up for my friend. Um, and obviously, I look back on that now and I'm like, why was that such a big deal to me? Why did I see that as an insult? Why is that a bad thing? Why was I trying to defend her? Like, it's not a bad thing to be gay. But I wasn't ready to deal with those emotions because I had internalized homophobia, because I had not processed the fact that I was queer. Um, and that same friend asked me too, like, are you gay? And I couldn't process it. I remember saying like, oh, I think girls are pretty, I think girls are nice, I think this, but I'm not gay, because I wasn't ready to process that discomfort. Um, that's really what I mean about the shadow. Is like we have this shadow self that's really um, it it is like behind all of these uncomfortable feelings, and it really just wants to express that joy. It wants to come out and be like, hey, what's up? Shine a light on me. I'm here. I'm your fear of processing your identity, of processing what it means to fit outside of these default settings that society has given you. I am freedom. I am creativity. Um, and what comes from that, processing that guilt and defensiveness that I felt, is self-forgiveness. I got to a place where like I acknowledge I'm gay, I acknowledge I'm queer, and I'm comfortable with that. And I no longer get defensive. I no longer, feel this discomfort in my body, I feel so much more free. I feel like I've grown so much. Um, so allyship is a lifelong commitment to uproot and change internalized systems of oppression that benefited us. It's not something that I can teach you in a workshop. It's not something that somebody can just like read from a book. That's part of it, but the bigger part of it is doing the emotional work of like, how do I process what this new knowledge means for me, for my sense of identity? What trauma am I holding on to? What beliefs am I holding on to because my ancestors had to live through that shit, or I had to live through that shit? How am I still carrying that in my body, and how is that limiting me from being a better ally in this moment? You know, practicing allyship in this moment for someone or for myself. Um, so yeah, it's more than just something that you learn. It's more than something that you do. It's a process of getting to know yourself, of removing these default settings from your head, removing this automatic mode from your head, and seeing, you know, who you are, becoming more conscious of yourself and of the privileges that you hold. Even though your life may be super fucking hard, you may still have benefits that other people don't have. Okay, so decolonizing gender. So this is a process that I've been going through for, I don't know, the last 2 years of my life. And what I've learned so far about it is that it's really a process. It's not a one and done. There's no magic pill for decolonizing your gender. There's no way to really like know what it means for any individual, because it's different. There's different emotions to process. There's different trauma. There's different um, discomfort. So what I've learned is that it really is this process that can be broken down into three pieces. And the first part is education. The first part is understanding that we don't know, accepting that we don't know, and making space to throw out all the useless knowledge that has been ingrained in us since we were born about this is what boys are, this is what girls are, this is what men are, this is what women are, and you have to fit into that as you grow. Throw that out, start over. So that's the first step. The second step is integration. So really processing and feeling the emotions that come with, oh shit, maybe I don't know who I am. Maybe I thought, you know, I was a woman who was like a really soft, sensitive, emotional, self-sacrificing person, but really I was just taught that culturally, in order so that other people could take advantage of me, so that I wouldn't know how to set my own boundaries, so that, you know, I would always be in a place of needing that external validation, usually from men, um, so that honestly, so that it's easier to control me, and so that I don't ever want to know who I am because I'm too scared, because I'm so comfortable in that familiar role that I've learned. So that's the biggest part about this process, is feeling those emotions that come up. And then the last part is embodying who you could be in a world where the gender binary does not exist. And there's really no way of getting to that healing space if you haven't gone through the integration space. I don't care how many books you've read on gender, how many trans people you know, how many protests you've been to, how many, you know, community events you've had. This is not possible to get to that healing space if you don't do the integration, if you don't feel those uncomfortable feelings, if you don't process that guilt and that defensiveness. But the beautiful part about getting to that healing space is that you get to a place where you're building a relationship with yourself that is free from all of these constructs that we've been taught for so long. And it gives you a space to imagine who you can be, what your ideal self is, in all of your creative majesty and all of your beauty. So yeah, I really offer this as like, this is what has helped me in my healing process. And I have created a workshop around this idea, this process, in order to help other people start decolonizing their gender identities. And this workshop is for you. I know that it's a decolonizing gender identity, and you might be like, well, I'm cis, you know, I'm pretty fucking sure I'm cis. Like, I thought about it, but this is who I am. This workshop is not specifically for people who are questioning their gender identity. It's simply for people who understand or who are exploring the idea that gender is a colonial construct, um, and you want to learn more about it. It's for you if you're ready to begin to process how the gender binary has impacted your life and your sense of self. Like I was saying, like when I identified as a woman, I really thought I was a cis woman, and I feel this is a lot for a lot of women that feel like they've been taught to be self-sacrificial. They've been taught to not have boundaries. They've been taught to, seek that external validation from people by doing all of these things, constantly giving, constantly being the nice one, being the mother, being the caring one. Um, but you don't have those expectations of other people. Other people just have these expectations of you. I think for men, perhaps it could be cis men who um, feel like they have to do things a certain way, or like they need that validation as well, or like their only sense of success comes from these external things like prestigious status things. Like for example, I'm thinking of when I really felt like I had to have my intelligence validated by getting into this big college. um, I think that's something that you might want to explore as well if you identify as a cis man. Like, this workshop could help you with that. um, so it's about wanting to process your gender identity and how the gender binary has impacted your life. It's also for you if you're open to the idea of spiritual guidance, specifically ancestral guidance, as a form of healing these intergenerational wounds, because they've impacted our ancestors, for generations. This isn't something that is new to us, to our generation. Um, and I really want you to feel like you have a team supporting you as you do this work, because it's not easy work. Um, but it's work that is extremely beneficial, not just for you, but for all the people in your lineage who had to go through this shit, and for all of the people who will now be part of your life, who will meet you as someone who is free from this. You know what I mean? So you're not alone in this. So many people want you to win, and once you do win, you're gonna help so many people. um, Finally, this is for you if you want to decolonize your gender identity and you see it as an important step on this journey to self-love. If you're struggling with self-love, like I think we all are, it's not an easy thing to learn. And I think our culture has done a big part in making that process really difficult. But if you're like, I understand that the culture has done this and I want to start to undo some of this, I want to start learning maybe some little piece about how to love myself, how to love my gender identity, how to not feel like I have to conform to these standards, then maybe you should check out this workshop. So here's the workshop if you're interested. It's about an hour and a half. Um, the first part is composed of an education piece, so I'll be talking about the biology about gender, basically what we've been taught about chromosomes, what we've been taught about body parts, hormones, brain science. So I go into the research there about how to like all of the biological challenges to the scientific truth of the gender binary. I go into the history of colonialism and how various different cultures throughout the world had, you know, existed outside of gender binaries. They had cultures where they had multiple genders, or the gender identities were just different from our ideas of what a man and what a woman is. So that's the education piece, that's the unlearning piece. The second piece is the integration work. So this is the heavy work of processing our own emotions. And this part consists of watching a video that sort of helps you imagine a child being born outside of the gender binary. And then it's 10, I believe it's 10 reflection questions that are really asking you about how you have understood your gender, based on how what society has taught you, and processing your life and your ideas of beauty and love and, sex, and your sense of self. So that's the second part. That's the integration. That's going into the emotional work. And those are journal prompts for you to work with at the pace that you want. This is all pre-recorded, so I'm not going to be checking like, are you done yet? I don't care how long it takes you, as long as you're going through the work. That's what matters to me. And then finally, the last piece is the healing piece. So for this, I offer breath work. Um, and breath work has been a really powerful tool for me in my healing process. I want to give credit to I believe, East Asian and South Asian ancestors who cultivated this practice. It's really about moving your energy. It's about understanding that we have a physical body and we have this energetic body, and that oftentimes, like, you know, our discomfort, our grief, our emotions get stuck in our body, and our mind just like is really good at pretending it's not there, like living life outside of that. Like, oh yeah, you know what, I'm kind of processing this trauma right now, but I don't want to think about it, so I'm gonna go do this. So breath work is really about, no, let's feel what's in the body, let's work through it, let's process it, let's move it out, let's just clean it out. So there's a video on that, and then there's a healing drum meditation, and that's a guided meditation that helps you imagine again like what your life could have been like if you weren't forced to follow all of these rules about what a boy is and what a girl is. If you were just free to be whoever you are. um, and yeah, so I also want to give credit to all the ancestors who have cultivated the shamanic drumming practices, um, because those have also been really, really helpful in my healing process. So that's the folk package. You have the education piece with the biology and history research. You have the integration piece with the video and the questions. And then you have the healing piece with the breath work and the guided drum meditation. So I really hope that you decide to purchase this, because I know how much it will help you and it will help the people around you. So thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you would like to learn more about how to start unpacking the gender binary in your life, you can check out part 2 of this Allyship video series. I'll probably be posting a link somewhere. And then you can find me at my Instagram at mx.mendoza_, or you can email me at hello@mixmendoza.com. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a beautiful day.